Yeah. So, popcorn's out. This is we're watching an architect reviews the whole C, but as I probably like, if this does become a YouTube video, I will probably connect this tweet in some way, where there's a surprise at the end of this video. I don't know. There was a tweet from Morphologist, which is absolutely insane and mind-blowing and caught me completely off guard and by surprise. But he also shares that in this video. So I normally wait a day for a video to come out and let it, go through its YouTube process with their normal viewers and then react to it. I just asked Morphologist. He's totally fine with me reacting. It's only 2 hours old. It's an architect reviews the Hull C hauler, which I really want to watch from the Hull C perspective. And then there's this other thing. So stay tuned for this other thing that is absolutely nuts.
This is the Miss Hull C, a massive new ship introduced in Star Citizen's latest patch, 320. And while its visibility may only be equivalent to a paper bag with holes cut in it, it now takes the crown as Star Citizen's biggest cargo hauler thanks to a party trick unique to the Hull series: the ability to transform and deploy a massive array of cargo pads outboard of the hull. However, while the animation and exterior as a whole make for a stunning new addition.
Do you know what Burks told me yesterday? That you can actually shoot he did a test on his stream yesterday, that you could shoot those off and pirate the spindles while a ship is flying away. That's pretty crazy. But it acts like when you blow up a ship and it acts like when you blow up a ship and you will lose some of the cargo. Is the sound weird? It might be from a previous react that we were watching where I had to turn the gain up. Let me know if this fixes it.
In addition to the game, the interior falls a bit short of the quality that I've come to expect from CIG, which I'll tell you all about in this latest installment of An Architect Reviews, an ongoing series in which I employ my experience in the real world of architecture as well as in game design to examine something in the digital realm. And no, you didn't hear me wrong, I'm now revealing for the first time I actually did work for Star Atlas for a year, consulting on their ship's designs, and it was an amazing experience. It let me work with a bunch of amazing artists, including a number of ex-CIG guys who worked on ships like the Banu Merchantman, the 400i, and the Hull A. So
wait, people that worked on the Banu Merchantman, did they go to Star Atlas? Oh no. Oh no, dude, the Banu Merchantman didn't come out so they could go to Star Atlas, bro. Oh my god, that's insane. Okay, so yeah, that's the big news, is Morph worked behind the scenes to help them on like consulting as an architect. And I will say, like, Morph has done this technically for CIG for a really long time. And through his videos, he absolutely, like, sort of acted as a consultant for game developers who are, like, level designers, but not, they didn't go to architecture school and do, you know, understand space and how to fill it and all these things the way architects do. I am not an architect, but one of my passions, or one of my guilty pleasures for, like, you know how you guys have those weird rabbit holes you go down in on YouTube? One of mine is gardening and farming, and another one is architecture. My wife and I watch a couple of architecture channels where these big architecture companies, I guess, show off some of their work, and they talk about it and how they choose to design space and use light and use the land around the building and such for certain viewpoints and things. So it's a very detailed thing that I don't think anyone in game development would particularly be trained in. So taking that perspective for designing ship interiors for a game like Star Citizen, where the ship interiors are so important, makes a lot of sense. So they've definitely listened to Morph in that way, but never brought him on as, like, a real consultant. So Star Atlas doing that is probably really cool for Morph. Really happy for Morph in that perspective. But crypto, bro. Crypto. Like, what the fuck? It's so hard because it's crypto. I'm like so happy for Morph and so torn all at the same time because everything it's built upon is cryptocurrency, and it just makes everything tainted. You know what I mean?
Moment, I'll take you guys over its exterior design.
But it's not like this ship isn't a fucking, you know, NFT. It's all the same.
Then through its interior and where I think it falls short. And if by the end you think
like here's the thing, we can't. It's very difficult to take Star Atlas and be like, you're worse. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? It's like Star Citizen's really bad. Morph has always been a crypto fan. I hope you're joking because he's been adamantly against it in his content. So
I did a good job and you think I deserve it, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to see more content like this. But one thing that definitely won't disappoint you is the sponsor of today's video, NordVPN.
Bitcoin.
Who now go a step
Solana
further with their new threat protection service. It works against intrusive ads, malware, trackers, and malicious websites. I've already personally been using them for years after getting fed up with dealing with free VPNs that just didn't work, so now I can access IP-restricted websites while I work from abroad, all while protecting my personal information. I also use the app on my iPad to watch shows like Strange New World Season 2 and Lower Decks, which is amazing, by the way. So if you're looking for a reliable VPN service and you want to help support the channel, head on over to nordvpn.com/morphologist to get a huge discount on a 2-year plan, plus get 4 additional months for free. That's nordvpn.com/morphologist, and if none of this really works for you, you can always get your money back with their 30-day money-back guarantee. The Hull C joins a long list of MISC ships already in Star Citizen. But while it's a latecomer, it was actually designed over 5 years ago and has been sitting on the shelf up until relatively recently when CIG were finally able to get around to completing the engineering required for making the animation work. As a result, unlike other ships I've discussed on this channel during this series, this ship isn't borrowing its language from other ships, it's instead the opposite. More recent MISC ships like the Hull A look to ships like this to inform its exterior design. However, earlier ships like the Freelancer and the Starfare came before the Hull C's development, and so the Hull C's design is evolved from them.
Like you could see it.
Examined together, all of the MISC ships do look to share a strong relationship, with
they all look like penises.
Exceptions being made for the MISC Razor and maybe the Fury Racing variant, as they all look to serve the role of an industrial ship that's reliable and can be used by Star Citizens across the verse. And so a measure of its success as a design is how it communicates its function. Let me call your attention then to the front of the ship, where you'll see a set of forward-facing thrusters, a unique feature to the Hull series which you won't find on a lot of other ships, which typically rely on their RCS thrusters to slow them down. This helps communicate the...
Damn, man, I kind of wish you said all this stuff at the end of the video. Because I think that bombshell at the beginning almost it takes away from my level of excitement for actually wanting to watch another Architect reviews from Morph. I mean, this made Morph in the community. So yeah, sorry. So Morph's going to be on Desync Podcast. If you guys aren't familiar with that, I'm literally typing, organizing all that, confirming everything. So yeah, Check that out if you guys haven't
heavy
yet.
load that this is likely going to be carrying, and because Star Citizen simulates the function of thrusters in the game, these have a real purpose. Likewise, the rear thruster array is also oversized for the undeployed size of the ship, communicating that it's going to be hauling a very large load, and it does, hauling over 4,600 SCU of cargo, making it easily the largest cargo hauler currently in Star Citizen.
Oh yeah, so what is the next biggest cargo hauling ship? 696 SCU, right? It's got nearly 4,000 more SCU than the next biggest one.
And on the subject of thrusters, probably one of my favorite bits of this ship are the well-detailed thrusters themselves. It's designed with great intention, with some features even feeling like they're functional, such as the hinged arm attached to the thruster here in the rear with actuating nozzles, which makes it seem like it could be serviced and removed if required, which is a great example of how detailing can go beyond just adding visual noise to a ship to tell a story about the ship's function, about how it's put together in the world that it inhabits. This further
You know, I really like the MISC look. I'm not gonna. I hate the material. This metal, like chrome, I've never liked. I don't know what everybody else's thoughts about that, but I think like a matte black would just take it to like the next level for me.
Enhances its sense of
no problem. Paints will come out. Yeah, well, guess what I did with my Starfarer? I bought the paint. And because of the material the ship is made out of, it looks nothing like the picture and was one of the biggest scams. Star Citizen scammed the shit out of me on that paint. $10, $15 for my Starfarer paint? Yeah, it might have even been $20. And my ship's not even black, man.
Realism and presence in the world that you've created. And while this kind of detailing probably isn't going to be consciously noticed by players, the effect of this attention to detail in aggregate creates a far better product as a whole. My favorite part of the whole C has got to be its party trick. Its ability to extend and then deploy a massive array of cargo pads outboard of the hull capable of holding over 4,600 SCU of cargo. The amazing bit of this is that someone actually had to engineer this so that it could fit within the hull and then deploy in a believable way. There was no fakery here. This stuff isn't disappearing when it goes inside the hull to magically fit. It actually does. So all the gears, servos, and hinges
it took
make
them
for
years
a
to do this
display when it's deployed. It once again shows off the CIG artist responsible's ability to visually storytell with the design.
I never noticed, are those springs?
While most game designers would probably balk at the idea of actually trying to design a mechanism to function like it were real in a video game, CIG really went the full extra mile to do this to really sell the believability of this ship in the universe, which speaks to the love and care that goes into Star Citizen as a whole and probably demonstrates why the game is taking so long.
Yeah.
But now you might be wondering how this ship could possibly land and how its spindly structure could support the massive weight of its cargo in any kind of gravity well. Well, the ship is not designed to be going in and out of gravity wells. Instead, it's more of a long-distance hauler designed to be traveling between star systems, which we don't have yet, but hopefully we'll get that soon, TM. So its function...
I think it's still not just meant to be traveling between star systems, but it's absolutely totally fine to travel between ports within a star system. And I think that the current gameplay that they've implemented really highlights that and showcases that very poorly, but it showcases their intentions for it. And I think that their intentions are... I think that they're really good, and I think that they're in a good place but just their intentions. Their implementation is absolutely horrendous for this so far.
Is to transport cargo between space stations in space and can be only loaded and unloaded in space locations at major ports. So then CIG designed a...
I think the number of SCU, let's say the whole E is like 20,000 SCU or something crazy. The number of SCU I don't think is relevant, because the amount of people that would live at, say, around a planetary body, no singular ship in the game, even a hull E, would be moving the amount of cargo that would affect an entire star system or an entire planet, right? I think we're definitely working at scales that are very similar to your cargo containers in the real world that we have today. They're shipping hundreds of cargo containers, thousands of tons of goods, whether it's grain or oil or toys or bikes or cars, and the amount of things on that singular cargo container are not going to impact the entire planet's economy, right? I just don't see that even in a whole E's example for that. But they, are going to move things like grain, gas, and many other things that are being moved in bulk more often, I would imagine.
A temporary system at cargo deck locations outside of major ports, which will help you load and unload cargo. But this is only temporary. Later, this is going to be replaced by a more physical system using the tractor beams equipped to both stations and ships to load cargo onto a ship.
I'd love to see how
to
that
protect
works.
it during its travel, the Hull C also boasts a set of 3 size 3 turrets, which are all remotely controlled, one being slaved to the pilot position. The ship
I thought there was 4 turrets.
Also comes with a full set of
2 on the top, 2 on the bottom.
size 3 components, including a size 3 quantum drive and 2 size 3 shields for protection, which is quite a lot, and it probably needs it given that all of its cargo is exposed on the outside, pretty much advertising to any pirate what you're carrying. But now I think it's about time we took a step up to the ship to see its scale and then stepped on into the inside to take a short
Well, the tractor turret has 4, and then I thought the defensive turrets were also 4.
of what it has to offer for its internal facilities. Since the ship is incapable of landing with its cargo deployed, it has the ability to dock with stations well in space. This is how you'll get on and off the vessel at those locations. Orson is also unique in that because it's in the atmosphere of a gas giant, you can also dock here with the Hull C, making it the only landing zone capable of supporting the Hull C in its deployed form. However, undeployed it is capable of landing on the ground, which is how I'm going to approach the ship and demonstrate just how big this thing is. At over 125 meters long, 55 meters wide, and 55 meters tall, it's a big ship, which can be sometimes hard to communicate through a video format like this until you walk up to it. The landing gear alone could probably be the size of a starter ship. Here we get a bit more visual storytelling with an oversized set of pistons to support the massive weight of its engines, which again are needed to propel the literally massive amount of cargo it can carry. But now it's finally time to step inside. When in its landed form, the Hull C can be entered through a drop-down lift, hidden behind a panel that's flush with the exterior of the ship. Notice the cool detailing on the edges of the door, by the way. It's a nice little touch that makes it just feel a little bit more substantial.
We're now getting to the interior, the good stuff.
But otherwise, it's a pretty standard lift like any other ship in Star Citizen. The lift, though, brings us up into a shared space between the exterior airlock and the elevator itself, providing...
Before he gets into this, I love and hate the interior of this ship. The section he is in, I hate. This room and this room, can't stand them.
A nice convenient combined location for an overall airlock to prevent any undesired decompressions. But overall I think it's a rather clever way to lay out the space so that you're not taking up too much space on the interior, which could be better utilized for other necessary program. The amenities in this space are also well considered, with a set of suit lockers for the crew and captain, and a weapon locker should the ship be boarded or should you need to use the ship to board others. I don't know why you'd ever do that. It's a hauling ship, but I guess the option's available. There's also the use of...
That's true. Maybe to defend yourself, but that's a really weird place to put it if you're there, if you're going to defend yourself. The weapon locker should be before this area, right?
Signature caution orange, which you'll find in spaces that have a higher level of danger, like airlocks. It's a good way to visually communicate a space's use. Here you'll also start to notice the good level of attention to detail on the interior, which follows the exterior's design. Pipe contacts with walls and how it's fastened on the wall are all well considered here, something I want you guys to remember for later. But now let's take a step past the airlock into the main ship corridor. Up the hallway and to my left, you'll find the bridge, which we'll visit later in this tour.
I think
and to
the
the
bridge
right,
is
moving
the second
after
best part of the ship.
We'll find the engineering compartment. And directly above us are the living quarters, as well as the tractor beam control station, which we'll also visit a little bit later. The corridor does, though, unfortunately hint at a bit of an issue with this ship's development, and that's how it was made during a time where components weren't necessarily fully understood, and so you may find components interspersed throughout the ship and not just in engineering, an unfortunate artifact of the game's ongoing development. That being said, though, a central navigation corridor...
But, like, we're not there now, so, like, fix it.
...is a good way to organize space. I also like the use of windows in this corridor to help make the space feel a little bit bigger, but more practically provide the occupant with a view in onto some important spaces such as the docking port as well as the escape pods. Which brings us to the space directly across the hallway from the entrance, the escape pod room as well as additional component access. This room's existence is a bit strange, considering
Yeah, this is the part I hate. Is this room is massive, and it's an escape pod room, and it's just huge, and it's a mishmash. It's very weird.
On other ships, escape pods have been located directly on the corridor. They might have done the same on this ship and reserved this space for something else instead, but there may be an argument for why you'd want to have this in a separate space. I also don't want to overlook the use of contextual labeling to communicate what spaces are used for. The graphics are tasteful and seem to follow the same sort of design language as the rest of Misk's design. This space also enjoys the introduction of cabling, which is again a common theme throughout the interior of the ship as well as the exterior. A design element that helps communicate that the ship is still industrial despite its otherwise clean lines as opposed to ship designs like those from Drake. But now let's take a trip to the engineering section before we head to the other parts of the ship. Through this airlock is the corridor that travels through the spindle. This is the part that expands and contracts when the ship deploys its cargo pads. And the corridor gets really, really long when you do that. It reminds me of that ship from Event Horizon. Really creepy movie, by the way. Totally recommend it. The only negative thing I have to say about this space is that I just kind of wish there were windows. It would have allowed us to inspect the cargo, but also windows are just kind of cool.
Yeah.
The engineering section...
I think that bummed me out a little bit, is it's just a tube, you know? And because it is such an insane experience to realize that you're in a spindle of a vehicle, and if you look at it from far away, it looks like a straw, but you're in the straw, you know? So, like, to see out, to realize where you are and what you're actually doing would just be mind-blowing.
Also...
Yeah, very similar to the Starfarer balcony. The Starfarer balcony just hits like no other ship we have in game. Maybe you can argue also the Drake Corsair, that elevator that goes up to the roof. The fact that you can just be there, there's something really special about those experiences, and I think they could have provided that super special experience from within the spindle. But it is what it is. Not that big of a deal, but it would have been cool. Which is sensible, considering this spindle is the most vulnerable part of the ship when it's deployed, so you probably want to keep both sections pretty safe. And directly off that door are the two sets of main engines, which look really cool. Sick.
They showcase some of CIG's latest work with special effects, and yeah.
I just don't like the radiation or the proto-molecule that's flying around, you know, like about to consume me.
You could stare at this for a little bit and probably start hearing voices, so don't stare for too long. As you might expect from this section, there are a good array of pipes and panels for accessing these components, although engineering isn't yet a thing in Star Citizen. We were hoping to get...
You know what I mean? Like, when I was talking about, like, fix it, like, did we need this giant pipe here? Or, like, could we put the shield generator in this room? We probably could have.
That this year, but sadly, it's not become a thing yet. Kind of disappointing, but it should be a very cool ship to be an engineer on when that happens. It just makes the ship feel, again, really real, I suppose.
Could have put it over here.
It's a believable mechanism that you're standing within, with those massive engines just outboard the aftmost section of the ship. At the end of the hall, you'll also find a ladder and elevator to take you up to the 2 additional decks. There's an engineering deck, 1 deck.
I love that we have an elevator and a ladder. Thank you. Thank you, CIG.
Deck up, and then an airlock on the very top deck. I particularly like the emergency lights that are directing you towards the ladder to go up and down
Where the
decks.
Carrack failed.
It's a really neat and
New
subtle
ships
little
will
detail
not.
that gives the interior a little bit more of a sci-fi feeling. But now let's go up to that component access deck.
Ladders are buggy as fuck. Yeah, but you have to expect ladders to get fixed. Only having one way in and out, like think about how the Carrack works. It's not a good experience, right? So yeah, having ladders to all decks is just generally better.
This is where you're going to access the majority of the components on the ship, and likely where you're going to be spending a lot of time if you play the role of engineer on the ship in the future, placing breakers, putting out fires, etc. in the course of your mission. The component room also is very well done, with an excellent lighting scheme and very atmospheric effects, with great little bits and details around that really make it feel like a living and breathing ship. I also like this weird spinny thing. I don't know what it's supposed to do, but
Who cares?
it's cool.
Yeah.
I admit, sometimes things just need to look cool. One little problem, though, is I'm not quite sure how you're supposed to move the components out of this space since that door is too small to fit them, but
I believe they spoke about for size 3s that they want you to cut things, or they went a little crazy with conversations on an SCL one time, and I'm not sure if I believe that's the way it's going to be, but it sounded like they were playing Hard Space Shipbreaker, and we're just imagining, and I don't know, so Star Citizen.
maybe I'm wrong on this, and maybe there's some other alternate routes. I don't know. This is a problem for CIG to fix down the line that I don't envy. This room also has access to an engineer's private escape pod, which makes a lot of sense since they'll be working back here, especially during an emergency, and will likely need quick access to a way to escape the ship.
Yeah, they're
if
not gonna
things go awry, which
run down
I
the
suspect
spindle or
will
whatever.
happen sometimes. But now let's take a look at the last deck in the engineering section, the airlock, which is purely for EVA access. It's not capable of supporting any kind of umbilical, so I believe that the idea behind this airlock is purely for maintenance. It also has its own EVA suit locker for that function. But we still have 3 more spaces to visit.
I love that.
The tractor beam control room, habitation, and the bridge. Now, a little bit of context, most ships in Star Citizen have internal elevators when they're a ship of this size, with ladders being left as auxiliary ways to get up and down decks. Strangely, this isn't the case for the living quarters section of the ship. While there's an elevator to get outside the ship and an elevator for the engineering section, there's no elevator to get to the upper area of the living quarters, which will make for an interesting problem when trying to move things in and out of the ship with physical inventory. This is definitely quite a serious oversight that I wish they would have taken some time to address to update it with the current standards of the game. Upon arriving at the upper section of the ladder, we're greeted with a small corridor with connection to the living quarters as well as to the tractor beam control. The tractor beam control is a part of the ship that allows an engineer to control the ship's 2 tractor beams for loading and unloading cargo, a feature that's currently not functional in the game or on this ship.
I believe there's 4 tractor beams, one for each thing. So you're able to get the bottom and top of each side. So the palms of my hands face one faces towards the back of the ship, one faces towards the front, and then you have the plus sign of the cargo, and they both face outwards. So you have a tractor beam that can grab and add from both sides on the top, and then the same on the bottom. So there's 4
ship. So this is something
it's really properly thought out, and I'm very excited for ship tractor beams. I think it's going to make the logistics gameplay with something like this a lot of fun.
That's going to have to be left for another video to discuss. So instead, let's visit the habitation quarters. While the other parts of the ship have good
This is my favorite part of the ship.
Good parts to them, this part of the ship is certainly the weakest, and probably...
What? Oh my god, no way! So me and Morph have absolutely different feelings about this. I'll pause it right here. I'm gonna I'll move myself to this side and say, Yeah, I feel betrayed. This side of the beds and everything, it feels like a sci-fi scene, like a proper sci-fi spaceship to me. It gives me Expanse vibes. I like it.
Probably one of the weakest showings for an interior design in CIG's recent history.
But he's the
There
expert.
are a number of problems with this space which may not at first appear obvious to you, but allow me to point them out. The first most obvious issue to me was how the light doesn't align with the table. It's kind of a strange decision, and it doesn't seem to be aligned with anything in particular. I think it would have been much better to consider the light's relationship with the table like other ships have done in the past. It just feels like a rather sloppy oversight for this interior design. And while I do appreciate that there's a blast door to look out on the cargo pods, even though it doesn't work in this current iteration, this back wall is rather under-detailed and underwhelming as compared to earlier examples of interior designs, offering no storage space for any type of personal articles. And this is kind of a theme with this interior space. There's a lot less consideration for those smaller details which have made previous ships by CIG so compelling.
Holy shit, this was my favorite spot, and now he's going to make me hate it.
For example, in the Hull A's example, there's a lot better use of space in a much smaller area that makes it feel a lot more cozy. And then there's the ship's galley, which is just kind of awkwardly detailed. The opening for it is a little bit too high, and this introduction of a pipe that goes past the opening feels like a slapped-on and ill-considered element of detailing that doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
True.
It's also poorly detailed on the connection level. If you take a look at the way the pipe, for example, connects with the ground, it kind of ignores other geometry in a way that it's not done on other parts of the ship. The ceiling too shares this issue, with a strange problem with the parallax texture being very apparent to me. It's not the biggest issue in the world, but again, this isn't
Oh my god, I can't unsee it. Damn you, Morph. Now I hate this area.
The galley too itself isn't very well detailed as compared to earlier ship examples. There just isn't.
The galley's like really big for 4 people. Like, I feel like it could be half the size.
A whole lot of recognizable equipment in here or places to store various articles like in other ships. There are no obvious refrigerators or obvious places to store utensils, and it's just rather bare and uninspiring. And there are also awkward areas like the back section in the corner of the kitchen that just has nothing in it. It could have used something, you know, some
more if that's for us to put stuff there. That's where I put my paper towel rack, okay?
kind of detailing. And then again, there's an issue with the pipe dealing with how it runs into the ceiling, regardless of the way the paneling's been designed. Something that I again repeat has been done way better on other parts of the ship, which I suspect were done by different ship artists with different levels of skill. And even in this section, it's done right in
burned
one area and wrong.
Get burned, pipe guy.
Wrong in the other. It's just a weird detail
Andy.
that seems like it shouldn't have come out this way. And then there's this really tiny countertop for dispersing.
God damn it, I never noticed it, and now I can't unsee it. Why is it like this?
Food. It seems like they should have had a bit of an overhang here, a bit more of a consideration for how the space would have been used. It's this little
holy shit, this was my favorite area.
Attention to detail and fine storytelling that I've been telling you guys about throughout this entire review that is kind of absent from this space. It just wasn't as well considered as any other part of the ship, or really, for that matter, any other ship that I've seen in recent memory.
I wanted to live in this room.
This whole opening as a whole just seems also poorly scaled. It would have been much better being a little bit more narrow.
Guys, I want to point out these are the exact same things that happened when I bought this house in 2011. I didn't notice any of the absolutely horrendous details that the previous owner put in I was going to call this ship, this home. And over time, I noticed how bad this house was designed and how bad this house actually is. And I literally have like a lemon of a house. Nothing works. The floors aren't even level. It is literally a complete gut job of a house in so many ways, shapes, and forms. It may look nice when I've like cooked in the kitchen, but it is so far from nice. And it is, that kind of explains why I think this this part of the ship was so cool.
And would have prevented smoke from cooking from going over to the living quarters. And it's going to suck on that top bunk. And even just the lighting is kind of dull and bland. how much better the Hull A's lighting is, for example, for direct comparison for the
I got an inspection, but I'm not going through my life details on Twitch, okay? I've made some mistakes in my life, all right?
Of ship from the same...
You know, hindsight Andy's in Twitch chat telling me how things are supposed to be. Thank you.
Manufacturer.
10 years later, thanks for
living quarters
helping me out with
flat
that.
In comparison. And then you have the bunks, which at first may appear to be alright, but then if you look a little bit closer, you start to notice some really strange decisions in detailing. It's a small thing, but look at this button panel, for example, and how none of it really aligns to anything or really seems to mean anything.
Wait,
it seems like this detailing was just slapped in here for no particular reason, other than to just fill a blank space, when they had a massive blank space just on the back wall where they could have put more storage. And then the cabling here again, which has been well managed on other parts of the ship, is just left to sit out here and be tripped on. Even some of the labeling is really strange. Look at this escape label. It's located in the weirdest position that you would never expect to look. Why isn't it located directly above the door, adjacent to it, somewhere where you could actually see? And for that matter, why is there a MISC logo on the ceiling? The bathroom in this section doesn't fare much better either. It's a rather boring space that makes poor use of its rather small confines. The space is about the same size as the cabin on the Hull A, and there's only 4 storage...
Yeah, Morph just casually ruined my entire fantasy of this ship. I'll never fly it again.
...compartments in here. You could have had a bench and another suit locker instead of putting only 2 lockers on one wall with a massive detail to try to cover up the fact that it's poorly utilizing the space in general. And moving forward to the head, while it may at first appear to be similar to other ships in the line, it also lacks some vital details that have become just standard on other ship interiors, like...
Architect absolutely dumpsters $5,000 ship. How much does this ship cost?
A toilet paper dispenser. We can't wipe our butts in Star Citizen, but, I mean, again, this is stuff that in...
Bro, who's using toilet paper 1,000 years in the future? Okay, come on.
Is really showing that the ship wasn't as well considered. On its own, one little mistake here and there wouldn't have been a big deal, but altogether, the space is just really disappointing. Overall, the spaces are just really poorly scaled, badly detailed. There are strange decisions all over the place in here, and I just would have completely redesigned this space if it were up to me. It's definitely not 100% bad, but it's definitely not CIG's best work.
You don't use toilet
paper
now?
It's the only space on this ship that's bad. The bridge, which is our last stop on this tour, is just as finely detailed as any of the other ships they've done in this lineup. And well, I'm sure some of you...
This was my second favorite part of the ship, just because of this scene right here, is you walk in and you have that big, long window to wherever you are, especially if you're like, you know, facing a planet, facing a station, something like that. It's really, really good. But how's Morph gonna ruin this one for me?
Will complain that its visibility is terrible, and I won't disagree with you there. It's a hauler, it's not really meant for combat, and so all it really needs to have is just basic visibility forward, because it's gonna be flying in space where there's not a whole lot of stuff to run into. I'm personally a fan of the panoramic views. In fact, the Freelancer was my first ship in Star Citizen, and so I guess it holds a special place in my heart to have this kind of design.
I love the view.
I also like how this design follows the rest of the ship's design on the exterior and interior, with these panels interstitched with industrial elements to help sell the fact that it's an industrial ship, such as analog switches and various cables and readout panels that you see interspersed throughout the control panel. I also really like that there's a captain's seat in this ship. It's something that you find in a lot of MISC ships that's absent from other manufacturers.
But what do captains do?
I kind of wish we had. It's cool to have a captain's seat. So overall then, I'm really pleased with the way the Hull C has turned out, with the exception of the habitation quarters. It's unfortunate that it's so much worse than any of the other ships that they've put out, because it really tends to sour the experience overall for me. For that reason, I can't give the design high marks for its interior, but I will say that functionally it's a fine ship, and that if you're just planning on using it for hauling, you'll probably be well pleased with the experience. Hopefully we see future releases from CIG being a bit more consistent with their detailing, but maybe it's just a byproduct of a ship that was developed in a time where their standards weren't as evolved as they are today. Either way though, I wish it wasn't released in this state. But what do you guys think? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Let me know down in the comments section below. And also be sure to let me know if there's anything else you like or dislike about the Hull C. I love talking design, and if you guys want to see more videos like this, you know what to do. Hope to see you guys in the next one.
Yeah. That was he ruined the ship. I hate I loved the ship, and I hate how it worked currently, and now I don't like both things. And he works for Star Atlas. What the hell just happened? What just happened? I don't know. Again, Morph's one of my closest friends in the Star Citizen community, and just in general, as far as I don't talk to many people about personal things, but I definitely do with Morph. And I didn't know about any of this, so this all caught me by surprise. So I kind of want to keep my opinions pretty close to my chest about the whole Star Atlas thing without talking to him first. But I will say cryptocurrency is really weird, and there's a lot of bad actors, and Star Atlas took Star Citizen's funding model, which was already bad, and I think made it incredibly worse by attaching it to cryptocurrency. And it's never going to be a good look when people move to do something like that. It's just not a good look. And dude, knowing that the people who worked on the Banu Merchantman went to this company, that's probably the most value we got out of the video, which was actually a really good video. But it's like, holy shit, did that just happen, kind of thing? And it did. That just happened. We just found out what happened. The people who worked on the Banu Merchantman left to go work on Star Atlas. And that's why your Banu Merchantman is in development hell. To each their own. I mean, get your bag, I guess, as an artist or whatever, and do what makes you happy. I don't blame people for doing that. I think it's well known that CIG doesn't pay very well, so it is what it is. But damn, it's kind of crazy to think about, right? This video was nuts from so many perspectives.